All right, I think I'm ready. Hold on, let me write my list. Yeah, we're recording.
All right. You ready, Charles?
Was born ready.
Welcome to the latest Watercolors Aquarium Gallery podcast, brought to you from the Aquarium Rush Studios in downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. My name's Ben.
I'm Amy.
And I'm Charles.
We're going to talk about fun stuff today.
Oh my gosh, so fun.
The whole topic is going to be fun.
And this is a question that we actually get asked about, not just something we want to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, we still want to talk about it, but...
But not only us.
Yeah.
So the topic of the day is freshwater nano aquariums. And I actually took notes. Look guys, notes.
Wow.
Right. And I even wrote stuff on more than one page.
2 pages.
Uh-huh.
I wrote a list.
Pretty cool, huh?
I wrote a list.
Wow. Ben really outshined us this episode.
But wait, there's more. There we go. Okay. So nano freshwater aquariums, that's like this huge thing right now. Mm-hmm. Very, very popular. For the longest time, it was, I want a bigger tank. I want a bigger tank. You know, it's like a boat. You always want a bigger one. But now nano
even when you
aquariums,
can't afford it? Or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. Nano aquariums are now like popular enough and exciting enough that instead of having a big aquarium, you just have a bunch of cute little ones.
Yeah, and a bunch of them.
Yeah. It's perfect.
And the same budget goes a little farther in a small tank.
Exactly. It's kind of like what we talked about in our last episode when we were talking about rather than getting a bigger tank, just get a smaller tank, only make it better. Mm-hmm. The best tank you can get, not the biggest tank you can get.
Or still get a bigger tank and just get smaller fish.
Mm-hmm. So that goes right down to, what do we mean by nanofish? Are we talking about fish that stay small? Are we talking about fish that go in small aquariums? Or are we just talking about small aquariums and the fish you would put in them?
I limited myself to fish that I thought could go in a 5-gallon.
Ooh.
And that's something that I agreed to because we were like, what's our limit for gallonage here? And I was like, I hadn't thought of that.
You guys consulted with each other?
I was asking if we came up with a limit because there are a lot of fish that I think could go in a 10-gallon that I wouldn't consider a nano fish.
But you consulted without me.
Yeah, we did.
This is one of the rules. So one of our rules when we make these lists is this is candid. This is not rehearsed. We don't know what the other people are going to... Well, I mean, now you guys know, but...
Well, we don't know each other's
No,
lists.
honestly, what we settled on was... Well, I was thinking 5-gallon, but I'm willing to have that argument if we want to. So,
And that's why we didn't consult, because I was curious to see what would happen.
yeah. So that's as far as we got.
Okay. Well, I started out on Google. I'm like, okay, how do we determine what's a nanofish? So when I Googled it, I found 4 different sites that had 4 different answers.
Okay.
And one of them was anything 30 gallons or less. One of them was 60 by 30 by 30 centimeters or less, which translates to
20.
2 feet by 1 feet by 1 foot, which is 15 gallon long.
Yeah.
Another site says 20 gallons, and another site says 10 gallons and smaller. So I wasn't sure where to land there. So then I went, okay, what about nano fish? Mm-hmm. And one site said anything 1.5 inches or smaller. One site said anything 2 inches or smaller. And I thought about that a little further and thought, there are some fish that get bigger than 2 inches that I would have no problem putting into a 5-gallon aquarium. Mm-hmm. Betta splendens, right? 2.5 inches for a big Betta splendens, but still that qualifies to me.
I mean, pretty much any of the killies that we're putting into 2.5s and 5s that get more than 2 inches.
Yeah, yeah. There are also fish that stay smaller than 1.5 inches that I wouldn't do in a 10-gallon tank or smaller. For me personally, for example, cardinal tetras.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was having that conversation with someone earlier today, actually.
Yeah. I think cardinal tetras can survive in a 10-gallon aquarium. But if we're talking about those fish that are like, these are the ultimate nano aquarium fish, cardinal tetras don't fit it for me because I think they want 10 is minimum. And if there's a school of 25, that's when they're really going to be happy. And I would not put 25 cardinal tetras in a 10-gallon tank.
No. It wouldn't even look good, I feel like, at that point. It would just be a mess.
Yeah. So I debated, do I want 10 gallons or 5 gallons? And I decided either.
Yeah.
So some of them on my list are like, okay, these would be great for a 5-gallon. Some of them belong on the list of nanofish, but I really would think a 5-gallon would be a little too small for them. But to me, it's still a great nanofish, so then I decided some could be 10 gallons. So that's how I made my list. That's my criteria.
Well, it sounds like you pretty much landed where I did anyway.
Yeah?
I was like, I want to choose stuff that I think can go in a 5-gallon, but most of mine I think are better done in a 10.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might have been the most restrictive because I tried to get stuff on my list that I felt like to do its entire life cycle in a 2.5-gallon tank.
Wow.
2.5 gallons.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
Okay,
I was
so
like,
all of Charles's are Achilles.
yeah.
Right. and really little bettas.
So I
And
was
licorice
like,
gouramis.
Spoilers.
He just threw down his pen and walked out of the room.
but of course, these are all fish that would do better in a larger tank. But I wanted the idea of like, we want to talk nano. I was thinking, so what if someone's just really scrapped for space? You know?
Right.
And so that's what I went with.
Yeah.
That was where I
the
ended up landing with a
closet
10.
fish keeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny that you bring that up because you know we've talked about this retired dentist we know who's bred somewhere around 800 different species of fish in a room slightly larger than a closet.
Sorry, I just had a flashback to that meme where it's like the 50 Shades of Grey and he's like, let me show you my secret room. And you open it up and it's just fish tanks.
I would never watch a movie like that.
All right. How do we get started?
Well, I think so. Quite honestly, my list is like, I don't know, 25 or 30 different fish of my top 5. Because there are so many that I wanted included in this podcast that I just decided to write them all down because they were all worth mentioning. And I'll just like eliminate. I'm sure some of them are going to be repeats, right? And then I can just scratch them out. And then I'll come up with some way to scale it down at the end. And
Well, then
talk
I
about some
did good.
groups.
I only have 6.
6? Oh, that's not bad. How many do you have?
I have 5 and an alternate, so 6.
Perfect. All right, so we did good.
So you should probably start then. You've got the big list.
No. I think we
Okay.
do it the traditional way that you start because
Okay.
hopefully I'll be able to cross 2 off my list.
Right.
You start. That's just kind of how it.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with a small schooling fish that I don't think gets nearly enough attention that we have in right now. Ruby tetras.
Nice.
I think that they are so underrated, especially compared to ember tetras. Not that they need to be compared directly, but I think people think they're the same thing.
Then they're smaller.
They are. They're smaller than ember tetras. They're just as hardy. They have just as good of personalities. I would even say rubies are hardier than ember tetras.
Yeah.
And I don't get asked about them that often. They are just as bright red as a chili rasbora, slightly deeper bodied, but about the same size. Really bright red jewel on the tail. Beautiful.
And what would you say would be their ultimate nano setup?
I think you could do them in a 5, but I would say probably like a dozen in a 10 would be beautiful.
Ah, that's perfect. That's what I
Yeah.
was hoping. I was like I was baiting you a little bit,
Yeah.
hoping that's where you'd go, and that's exactly it. I
Yeah,
agree.
like it's going to be the same thing for any of these schooling fish. Do a bigger group and they will look better. You could do 5 or 6 of them in a 5-gallon and they would do just fine.
Yeah, I agree.
But a planted 10-gallon with maybe some of the other fish we're going to talk about later for the bottom, and it would be gorgeous.
Yeah, perfect. That was kind of where I landed with a lot of these fish too, which is why I gave myself the opportunity to say 10-gallon counts.
Yeah.
So,
But like the thing is though, any of these I would say would be better done in a 10, but I don't know that any of them would be better done in a 20 than a 10.
I think that's true.
Like, I mean, you can always go a little more out,
Right.
but 10 is like plenty
Right.
to do what you want to do with these fish.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good qualifier, I think. That bigger at that point is just more, not necessarily better.
Yeah, and
Which-
more is always better. But
Yeah, but you're doing them justice with a school of a dozen of them in a 10-gallon aquarium.
yeah, they're not going to be shy. They're going to be beautiful.
A mix of mostly crushed flake food and then some frozen Daphne as a treat now and then should keep them healthy and happy
And gorgeous.
and gorgeous.
And they look beautiful. We've got them under the Twin Star right now, and it makes everything look prettier. And they're just like, the red of
That's
them
perfect.
is so intense.
That's perfect.
I really love that fish.
I think you kicked it off right, Amy. Good job.
Cool. Does that check off of your list?
No, actually, it doesn't.
Interesting.
It's because it's underrated.
It really is underrated. Like, nobody ever asks me
I have
about
never
ruby
been asked
tetras.
about one, and I've been trying to convince people to take them, and they're just like, I don't know what that is.
It's a shame.
Yeah. In fact, I don't think. No, I did not put a single tetra. Nope, not one tetra on my list. Oh, because I forgot Tucano tetras. Sorry, maybe when you did Tucano tetras.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't do Tucano tetras.
Those are fantastic little fish.
So that's the only tetra on my list.
Is it really?
Charles,
I
do you
don't
have any tetras?
So many of the tetras for me, even most of the small ones, anything in the Parachirodon genus, so that'd be Similis, Inaceae, and Axorati, all of those seemed like to really do them justice, you want 25.
Yeah.
And you can't put 25 in a 10-gallon tank.
Like ruby, Tucano. The only reason I didn't go with Tucano is because they're a little bit more sensitive, and I don't think they're like an everyman's fish. They want
Yeah.
acidic water if they can get it.
Right.
Ember tetras, but those are so ubiquitous, I didn't feel like I needed to talk about them.
I would almost not consider them a nanofish
Really?
personally. For me, they just edge out of what I would consider a nanofish, just barely.
You know, I would the Parachirodon similis, the green neon tetra, to me is the same one. That's like
yeah, on the border.
right on that line. They're a little smaller than neon tetras. They're a little more calm. I'd put ember tetras in the same category.
Yeah.
But those are like the hummingbird tetras, which are rare and expensive.
Jelly bean tetras too.
Ooh, yeah.
Those I think would qualify as, if you
Those
did
are nano.
7 or 8 of those in a 10-gallon tank, you'd do them justice. Yeah.
We've had them in a 5 before, and they looked great.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I've got for tetras, but we can like crack them all out
Hey,
while
we
we're
covered
talking about
tetras.
tetras.
Because I'm sure there's no tetras on your list.
There's
right?
not a single tetra on my list.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
All right, what's on your list, Charles?
So this might be the most controversial one on my list. I put celestial pearl danio.
That one, I thought about it, and it, to me, yeah, you know, I think you're right. But in a 10, not a 5.
For me, I think they're just fine in a 5. You have to do them differently, though.
Okay.
Okay. So I think you're thinking of them like a true mixed sex group. And if you're doing that, you have to jump up to a 10.
Mm-hmm.
If you can squirrel it, doing one male and like 3 or 4 females in a 5. And the trick I found was if you do kind of like if you set up like a bonsai tree or something that gives them shade, they will be out. My experience has been is that they need something above them to want to be out, quote unquote.
Yeah, I'm going to say
I
something
think
a
that's
little
true.
controversial here. I don't like CPDs. I'm going to get like lambasted
You
for
are,
that.
yeah. And-
but I don't like them.
I think your opinion is wrong.
They're so wimpy. They always look, even though I know it's their body shape, they always look sick and inbred to me. Like they don't want to come out. Everybody wants them, and there are so many cooler fish to me in that size range.
They don't want to come out because we can't keep them here in the way they want to be kept. That's going to be my counterpoint.
Yeah.
CPDs are my wife's favorite, so that's a fish that I had to figure out how to display well.
I understand that you have to love them, but the fact that you have to love them means your opinion is completely invalid. No.
But I have CPDs that are out and active.
I'm sure. I've seen them looking beautiful. They don't do it for me.
And that's fine.
They are a prettier fish than they are I don't know what the word you'd use for attitude or outgoingness.
Yeah.
Like that level of personality is missing from CPDs.
Yeah. So just so I can explain a little bit. So they don't seem to, at least in my experience, they don't seem to be a true schooling or shoaling fish. The males definitely form little territories, and the females kind of just roam around.
Interesting.
And so that's why I'm like, if you're doing it in a 5, you need one male, because that's what that tank can handle,
yeah.
you know? And then you can do 3 or 4 females and everything will be fine. But if you want a mixed sex group, or you don't want to deal with sexing them, you have to jump up to 10 and do like at least 8 or more.
I think that you might have struck on what it is to me with them is that they don't do what they're supposed to. Like they're not, they're like they're much an anomaly. Like they're not a danio, or they don't act like a danio. They don't act like a rasbora. They don't act like a tetra. They sort of act a little bit more like a barb to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I
That's
like
probably
them.
why you like them. But like they don't look the way that I feel like my instinct says they're supposed to, and they don't act like my instinct says they're supposed to, so they just feel wrong to me.
Yeah.
And it's probably that. They're different. They're their own thing.
And so that's why I wanted to bring it up and called it a little controversial, because I think this is a fish that a lot of people have misconceptions on how to keep it, and that's why they're disappointed by it, because they're trying to keep a small nano schooling fish, and that's not what they're buying.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
I'm having a little bit of an enlightening moment right here.
Yeah.
This is kind of fun.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
That's funny. I never made that barb connection before, but it makes it so much more amusing to me.
It's a tiny nano barb behavior-ish fish.
Oh wait, I gotta scratch another fish on my list here. I just remembered nano barbs. Anyway.
I think that's really everything I wanted to say about that fish, though.
Yeah.
But I had a specific bone to pick with that fish and explain how I think people should be keeping them in nanos.
Right. Interesting. Good
It'd be
call.
very cool.
Yep, I like it.
What do you want to start with?
All right, I'm cheating. Right out of the gate. A genus.
Okay.
Sunda danio. The whole genus.
Perfect. Scribble.
Yep.
It's not on my list, but the second you said it, I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
We get
Speaking of underrated.
Goblinus, we get Robellus, we get Marginatus. There's one other species I believe we get.
What's the other one?
What's the one we have downstairs?
That's Margeriton.
Margeritatus, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Marginatus.
Axelrodi, which is
Axelrodi,
like
of
the
course.
normal one.
Yeah, there we go. I think there's only 3 other members of the genus.
Yeah, and they don't really show up.
They don't, no.
Goblinus is my favorite. That's the one I put down.
I just like the name.
And it's blue. It's
Yeah.
like
Blue.
actually
It's
blue.
Not like iridescent blue, like blue.
Not like pretending to be blue. Not if you squint, it's blue. Not gray, it's blue.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
They're fantastic.
But the Sunda danio is actually kind of new to being on my radar because I'm going to be completely honest here. I never paid attention to them until we started doing unboxing videos, and I got to watch in real time both of your reactions to the fish as we were unboxing them, and then that made me be like, all right, maybe I should be looking at this a little harder. And every time we get a new one in, I'm like, wow, this is the prettiest Sunda danio I've ever seen. But whatever species I've seen most recently, in my head, that's the prettiest Sunda danio out there.
I think the only reason they're not more popular is they don't look good in fish stores. They take a little bit of time.
They've got to settle in.
Yeah.
Yep.
When they do, they glitter.
I definitely noticed that for us to move Sunda danios, they have to be in the right tank.
Yeah.
And then if they're in the right tank, they're gone in 3 days.
True.
If they're in the wrong tank, they sit there for 3 weeks. Exact same fish.
Yeah. Bright light.
Yeah.
Lots of plants.
They max out at less than an inch. The entire genus, less than an inch. Excuse me. They are all from Borneo, Sumatra, and some of the surrounding islands. So there's not a whole lot of collecting, not a whole lot of exportation that happens out of those places. Borneo and Sumatra, there's some, but the islands around, not much at all. But underrated,
Oh, yeah.
underappreciated, but perfect. I think you can do them in a 5-gallon. A group of 10 or 12 in a 10-gallon tank is just an outstanding display.
It's perfect.
Now, I'm going to throw you a little curveball question just because I'm trying to be funny, but also like, so what about like those rimless 8.5s we have?
That would be beautiful, I think.
I think that would be fantastic.
And I don't think that they would be jumpers. like them, some like dim spotlighting and like Java fern, some of those blue and purple tone booses.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh,
Yep.
Wow.
You could do a sweet biotope with Boos and Sunda danios.
and maybe not in the rim list, maybe 1 or 2 of those nano bettas that we're not going to talk about tonight at all.
Right.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, awesome pick.
So yeah, that's my first pick. That was one that I'm like, no matter what, this cannot be excluded from this conversation. To me, I think the Sunda danio genus is the ultimate schooling genus for nanotanks.
Yeah.
There are some other good ones out there.
Well, I don't know.
but
Speaking of rasboras, it's my turn, right? I
Go.
mean, I could just counter you with Boraras.
I knew.
I put exclamation points because
Yep.
they're my favorite. But I think any Boraras is worth considering. The chili rasbora being the obvious favorite right now, but I don't think the obvious best.
Yeah, I would argue that I think chili rasboras almost don't deserve their popularity because I think every other member of the genus deserves it just as much.
They're the reddest.
And they're reddest the fastest.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what
Yeah,
people
that
respond to.
just doesn't do it for me. The exclamation points, I have to agree with Amy. Those are my favorite. And maybe I'm biased and have been seduced to the dark side or something.
Chili rasboras are just too mainstream.
I think that's why they're not getting the love that they should.
You're just being a
I
hipster snob.
do have some of those tendencies. But
And you can't even say anything really against the chilies other than that the other ones are as cool and people should look at them.
that's literally my only point. And I'm not saying I hate chilies or I have a problem with them. I just wish every other species in the genus got as much attention because I think they all deserve it equally.
Yeah, most of them just have different spotting patterns. The exclamation point is definitely a little bit more orange, which I really like. They're almost like a mini Harlequin rasbora or something. And they get that nice green iridescent stripe, which is really pretty. But I think pretty much all the Boraras get a little bit of that iridescence on them when they're really well conditioned.
They should.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're all less than an inch, 3/4 of an inch. The only reason Sunda danios are better is because they're blue.
Yes, exactly. Blue is so cool and rare.
Right.
And they do have that. They're a little bit more outgoing than the Sunda danios, even though they're a little smaller.
I think that's true. Although, when you get the right group of Sunda danios, they're just more mellow.
Yeah, they are.
I think they're going to be out just as much.
What
Just not as fast moving.
What amazes me about the chilies in particular is that even in smaller groups, they don't tend to hide ever.
They are
That's true.
fearless.
Yeah. You don't have to put in any work to catch them. You're just kind of here we go.
The only time I have ever managed to scare a member of this genus was I tripped in front and I caught my hand on the table in front of the tank.
Oh, yeah.
So of course it slammed down.
Right.
And they were like, oh. And then they were after 2 seconds, they were like, okay, whatever. What was that?
I forgot we were all scared, guys.
And it's maybe they're so small they don't even care if they get eaten.
Or maybe they're so small that there's just not that many things out there that eat them.
Yeah, like a tiny bird or something is their only predator.
A little moth swoops down like a hawk.
Yeah. Everybody run. Yeah. There's not much more to say about them. They're just fantastic fish.
I agree. I think that was a good call.
Okay. What's next?
I got one that I think no one here at the table expected, but the second I say it, it's going to make a lot of sense. Sparkling gouramis.
Let me scrot that one up right here.
I put sparkling gouramis because they have what I like about a lot of the other fish on my list, but are much more accessible.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's an antibanthoid. We're going to start there. I think it would be a great starter into the world of licorice gouramis if you're scared to take on black water.
It's like a licorice gourami light.
Yeah. It's a lot of what I like about stuff like that, but easier to deal with. They'll spawn in our tap water. They're I don't have a lot to say about them. Just give them a go, guys.
Yeah, 2.5 gallons is plenty.
For a pair.
Yep.
And their color is beautiful when they're conditioned.
Yeah.
Like they get almost rainbowy iridescence.
Oh,
I'm gonna plug your Sunda danios. They are working perfectly as a dither
Right.
for those sparkling gouramis in that tank right now. Oh my goodness,
So
they
that would be
all
a
look so
great
good.
addition to that 8-gallon tank we're talking about.
Ugh.
I think this one qualifies as a fish, though, that 2.5 to 5 gallons, if this is the fish you're keeping, and that's the only fish you're keeping, you wouldn't want to go any bigger.
Yeah,
Right.
Like, even just the 2.5, you're doing that fish justice, and it's not going to get lost. I think it would be a perfect,
like
that it's a true nano.
A pair of them in a 2.5. That would be an awesome
That'd
display.
be beautiful. Yeah, I think
and
it's...
I genuinely think that if you're only doing sparkling gouramis and you put them in a 10, it's not doing them better. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just they're in a bigger tank now.
Yeah, you're just
Yep.
going to see them
You
less.
could put more of them in there, and they aren't quite as territorial as some of the other anabantoids. So more of them in a 10, you could do that.
My suggestion would be if you want to do a sparkling gourami pair in a 10 and that's all you want to do, get a pair of croaking gouramis.
Yeah, there you go. Or the giant sparkling gourami,
Yeah.
which instead of
Exactly.
being an inch long is like almost 1.75 inches.
Whoa.
all right,
almost twice as
Too big.
Right.
Monster fish right here.
No, I think
That was a great choice.
That's that. Well done, Shaw. Well done.
Golf clap, everybody.
All right, where do I go next? See, there's a couple of them that I'm pretty confident are going to be on Charles' list. There's one that I'm sure you guys were holding out that you wouldn't take from me that I know would be on my list. But you know what? I'm going to go with something super obscure that's really hard to get. And part of the reason that I'm doing this is...
Oh, I know which one. I thought you were going to be sarcastic for a second, but I know what you're talking about.
No, so part of the reason I'm doing this is for selfish reasons. Put this on the list is if there's anybody in their listening area that can get their hands on some of these fish and send some to me, I would be much obliged.
Eternally grateful.
Eternally grateful. Yes. There is a genus of pygmy livebearers called Neoheterandria. Lots of us are familiar with Heterandria, which Heterandria formosa is called the least killifish, which it's not actually a killifish. It's a livebearer. That is a native. It's found in Florida and even all the way over to Louisiana, Mississippi, and some of the coastal estuaries and swamps around there. Neoheterandria and Heterandria used to be in the same genus. They split it. There are now 3 species in Neoheterandria. One of them I don't know has ever been imported. One of them, that would be, I can't remember what that one is, but Neoheterandria trident tiger has allegedly been in the United States. But Neoheterandria elegans, I've had it before. We actually had a pair here at the shop. The female is the largest at 3/4 inch. Great little orange and black stripes on them.
They're so cute.
They're great. And anything larger than 2.5 gallons and they would get lost.
Yeah.
I did breed these fish like 10 years ago in a 2.5 gallon tank filled with a bunch of Nias grass. And that
How
was it.
small are the babies compared to the adults?
They're close to guppy fry size. They have,
Wow.
they drop differently. Instead of batch dropping, they'll drop 1 or 2 fry every couple of days.
I mean, a guppy fry is like half the size of it's like a 1/4 inch basically.
Yeah. And these are a little smaller than that.
Yeah,
but-
I'm just saying
yeah, they're-
live bearer fry size to adult size is insane.
So if you could imagine a guppy, here's maybe a way to think about it, right? Think of a guppy that would cram in 15 babies and how much space that would take up in a guppy. Shrink that down to a Neoheterandria and only put 3 in that amount of space. There's
Yeah.
the size ratio
It's
of that to
amazing.
be apparent. Yeah, they're surprisingly larger.
Like how much of their body is devoted just to producing young.
They are a little bit more of a challenging fish to keep. I think it's because they're so small and delicate, and they have like a 2-year lifespan. They don't live long. All of those things make them a little bit of a challenge, but I had to bring them up because they're one of my favorites. So it was top 5. There we go. Not top 5 because they're available and I love to see them in lots of tanks. Not top 5 because I think they're the most pretty nano fish out there or the best suited for nano life. Top 5 because I want them the most.
That's fair.
That's my criteria for that fish. Neoheterandria elegans.
Yeah, there are plenty of other live bearers that could make it on this list, but I think that's the coolest.
And it's the smallest.
Yeah.
It is the smallest live bear.
I didn't put... Isn't it like the smallest vertebrate almost?
No, it's the Heterandria formosa is the smallest vertebrate in North America. Mm-hmm. Now, Neoheterandria elegans are found in very southern Panama, which technically is considered North America. So that's kind of how they say that. There's a catfish that they found in South America that's smaller. And actually there's a genus of fish, and I should have written it down. I almost did, but I didn't. Found near where Sunda danios are found, that the largest adult is less than a half an inch.
Wow.
They're related to Sunda danio.
I found... Anyway, I'm just interested in what is actually the smallest. I found one that only gets to 7.9 millimeters, a fish.
So that's, 3/4 of a centimeter. Which fish is it?
It's Pedociprus progenitica.
I think that's the one. That's found in Indonesia, right?
I don't know. This is a crappy article. Anyway, that's a total distraction anyway.
There we go.
Great choice.
Neoheterandria elegans. That was what I chose.
Okay. I'm going to go in a different direction for my next one. This is an area of the tank we haven't talked about much yet. I'm going to go with corydoras habrosus.
I like it. Scratch that one off the list.
I love dwarf cories, but this is definitely my favorite. The pygmy cory is great, but it doesn't really look like a cory to me. Habrosus looks like a typical corydoras, just miniaturized.
I see where you go with that, and I can't disagree with you on that.
And I don't know what could be cuter than that. Still definitely want to do a group of at least 6, I would say.
I think you're right.
A 5 is definitely pushing it. A 10, I think, is perfectly fine. Great, even. Mm-hmm. You could definitely do a bigger group and larger, but that's really mainly to just showcase their shoaling behavior. Mm-hmm. 10 gallons is perfectly fine. Just as wiggly, just as active, just as outgoing, just teeny tiny.
I think that you did a great example there of, I did have Habrosus, Similis, and Pygmaeus all written down for the Dwarf Corygat category. But Pygmaeus, to me, looks way better if you've got a big group of them, like 15 or 20 Pygmaeus cories.
Yeah, and if you can pull off
shine.
50, that's even better.
That's how that group shines. Habrosus, I don't think needs that many to shine.
They don't seem as shoaly as Pygmaeus. If you've got a group, they're going to do that like a lot. Habrosus, I've almost never seen them really shoal the way that Pygmaeus can.
They'll be like a typical cory. They'll group and wiggle together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we would be remiss to not mention the third dwarf. The Similis isn't talked about enough, but the Hestetus.
Hestatus, right.
And that one is pretty fascinating to me because it does not behave like a cory cat at all. It's almost a midwater schooling fish.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think Pygmaeus does when they're in a big enough group. They become a midwater schooling fish.
Yeah, and I think Pygmaeus is better done in a larger tank. Habrosus sits really well there. And Similis, I think, sits really well in like the 10 gallon range. But they're like sort of size-wise between like a Habrosus and a panda.
Yeah. They are slightly
They're
larger,
a little bit bigger.
Whereas the Habrosus stays, 3/4 of an inch?
Yeah, I don't think they definitely don't get more than an inch.
Right.
I've seen fairly large ones that are nearly an inch. But so cute.
Fantastic little fish.
Yep.
I like it.
I would also throw out there, if you're choosing between panda and Similis, due to size, I would go with the Similis.
I was just going to say choose Similis.
Yeah.
Like, I just like them better.
and I'm speaking specifically, my experience with Similis is that they're so much hardier than the pandas are.
Yeah.
And it's not like the pandas are exceedingly difficult, but they are definitely, they have a slightly different lifestyle than most cory cats. And so when most people work with cory cats consistently, they're like, what's up with these pandas? Like a month ago, I had someone come in and be like, so how come I can't get these pandas to spawn? I'm like, oh, because they don't do a mass spawn like other cory cats. That you need to set them up so that they can do a little spawn for every day for like a week.
Yeah. And you need one male and a whole bunch of females. Or no, it's the other way around. One female and a whole bunch of males.
Yeah.
And for lack of a better way to say it, it's because the males are really bad shots. So in order to get the eggs fertilized, you need a bunch of males. So
one of them is bound to be successful eventually.
Aim right on the way through. But yeah, that's one of the challenges with breeding panda cories.
Yeah.
Is people go with the wrong sex ratios.
Yeah. People want to lump all corydoras together, but it's a hugely species diverse group of fish. Like there are CW numbers in there because there are so many.
Yeah, 300 or 400 and counting.
Yeah.
So if you want a small cory cat that isn't a true dwarf in my mind, but you want it to behave like a cory cat, Corydoras similis is your ticket.
Yep.
And they're beautiful.
Right. Yep. Sweet. Knock that one off. See, that's why I wrote this list like this. Look at how much of this I got taken off my list already. Well, look, just at the halfway point. Not even halfway. So yeah, this is
the halfway point of 25. Is that what you mean?
Well, I'm knocking them off in groups here.
All right.
Yeah,
we're knocking, like we're going through these groups as we're talking about
and
them.
some of them I'm just like, I'm not going to talk about that one. So see, I'm just knocking them off the list just like that.
All right, Charles.
All right, everyone expected this one. I put down licorice gouramis.
Yay!
Yes, you did.
If you had to hone me down to one species and not the entire genus, I would have said Freshwater. Just because if it's never been touched on the podcast, I really love the color purple.
Right.
It's so hard to find a good purple in freshwater.
That's the strawberry for those of you who might recognize common names but not the real names.
Yep. The real.
Sorry. I mean
That's how
complicated names.
Scientific name.
Yeah. The real name is how I want everyone to think of it.
Right.
For licorice gouramis, that's definitely the case.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna dwell on licorice gouramis with you for a moment,
Yes.
which I'm sure you hate that idea, right? It's a pretty wide group of fish with some pretty amazing specialized adaptations. And I would say some of them fall under the not quite easy level, but there are the easier licorice gouramis.
Yeah.
And then there are the dang near impossible licorice gouramis.
And a bunch of them in between, for the record.
Of them in between.
Yep.
So where would you put the strawberry licorice gourami on that scale?
I would probably put them as near beginner.
Near beginner. The scale is only licorice gouramis, right?
Yep.
So near beginner from a licorice gourami standpoint.
Yep.
Yeah. And so what licorice gourami would you put at, okay, I'm relatively new to fish keeping. I want to do something exciting. What's the easiest licorice gourami?
Parasfermenus filamentosus.
Filamentosus.
Like without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Because filamentosus is the least specialized licorice gourami. They can live and spawn their entire life, and this is going to sound, anyone listening to the podcast is going to be like, what? They can live and spawn in 6.5.
Wow.
That's way high for a licorice gourami.
Yeah, I know.
As opposed to the hardest, the most challenging. We're going to go with most challenging, not hard.
Yeah.
Or maybe some of the really challenging ones.
I think it's called Parvoresis.
They can spawn in like a pH of 3.
Which is like Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
The highest pH I've heard of this species spawning in is 4.3.
Right. That's the when they go to collect those fish in the wild, they put timers on to make sure they don't stay in the water too long because it'll burn their skin.
Yeah.
Right? It'll burn people's skin
Because it's acid.
because it's acid, right? But fish just breed in it.
They're like, yeah, this is my life.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to throw a wrench into the licorice gourami conversation, but it's a good one.
I like it.
Do you remember ever losing a licorice gourami? I don't remember ever losing one.
Yeah.
And there was a period of time in this store where I was in charge of freshwater quarantine. And that was not a great idea because I was also in charge of a million other things. And we had licorice gouramis, and I kept them with our Neoheterandria colonies and fed them frozen foods a couple times a week. And I don't remember ever losing one.
They did well like that.
We had groups of 6 and for months and months.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they lived for a month and then disappeared and I forgot about them. We had them like that for a really long time.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with her on this because this was back when I worked part-time in the store, and I remember bringing up to you once, I was like, how come these get like no attention? Because I'm told these are really hard.
And it was because they just did fine. They're not supposed to. Like, they're supposed to be impossible.
Right.
So, I mean, to breed them, for sure. Like, absolutely. You need to put in the work. But they're more doable than most people think.
I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you just want to keep them, you can go way easier on yourself.
So like one of the 3-gallon-ish, or maybe up to 5, but 3-gallon-ish rimless nano tanks with 5 Sunda danios and a pair of licorice gouramis.
I got a better one for you
Ooh,
because
I like
it's an actual biotope.
Okay.
If you did a blackwater tank with a pair of licorice gouramis, let's say 8 to 10 gallons, and a group of chili rasboras.
Ooh, that would be
But I like
so
Sunda
cute.
danios better.
You do, but that's actually, I don't know enough about Sunda danios to speak on their wild habitat, but they're actually like the Boraras.
Boraras, yeah.
Boraras, thank you.
Which is an anagram of rasbora, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. They are actually endemic to the same swamps that licorice gouramis are.
So is that just on the Malay Peninsula?
No, so this would be Malay and then like Sumatra and I think Borneo too.
Oh, well, that's where Sunda danios are from too.
Okay. Fascinating.
Fascinating indeed.
Swamps breed tiny fish.
They do. Yes. Yes. Specialized ecosystems where not lots can survive. Therefore, there's not a lot of opportunity to grow big.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to plug my talk a little bit. Is it on the Aquarium Rush Facebook page?
I think it is.
Okay.
But you should be able to find it through the GVAC page too.
Yeah. If you want an hour-long talk on licorice gouramis, I go to the Aquarium Rush Facebook page. It'll be in our videos.
You just made it sound a lot worse than it is. It's a fantastic hour-long talk
it's a
with a
great
ton of
presentation.
information.
Yep.
I don't want to oversell myself, if that makes sense. So
We'll oversell you, Charles. Don't worry.
We'll toot that horn for you. Beep, beep.
You bet. Excellent choice. I think that would be a fantastic little tank.
I will plug on the whole. This is my conservation notice on this.
Yep, please do.
They're peat swamp natives. Peat swamps are a disappearing habitat. The easiest thing you can do to not contribute to that is avoid products with palm oil. Palm oil is specifically the largest contributor to the loss of these habitats. The next level you can do is, believe it or not, if you are in a peat swamp and you look up, there is a good possibility you'll see orangutans. If you want to protect these type of habitats, find organizations that protect orangutan habitats, and you will peripherally be contributing to the conservation of these organisms. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, so I had to do that.
Perfect. Thank you for doing that. I'm glad you brought it up, or I would have. Well done.
All right, Ben.
Okay, I'm going to go with... Trying to do a little gambling here. There's 2 groups of fish that I'm really hoping Charles is going to talk about. But otherwise, I'm going to get to them. You know what? I'm going to talk about Badis.
Thank you.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I didn't put them on.
You didn't?
No, but I really thought about it.
I genuinely did not even cross my mind. Not for anything wrong or bad with them. I don't know, like didn't hit my radar.
They belong in this talk.
They do.
They do.
And all right, so all of you hardcore cichlid people, and even the hardcore apisto type or ram type cichlid people out there. No, I'm not implying that a Badis is a cichlid. It is not a cichlid.
But it may as well be.
But it may as well be a miniature cichlid.
Yeah.
They behave so much like apistos. They fill the niche in where they're from in Southeast Asia that apistos fill in the rainforests of South America. And they have that attitude and they have that personality, only they're even smaller.
And the scarlet Badis to me is one of the least cool ones.
That's Badis, right?
That's Dario.
Dario, that's right.
Badis is the blue Badis, something like that.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's not a well-known one to the hobby.
Right.
Badis. Dario is the scarlet. We've scanned him a few times.
Yeah.
The analogy of like celestial pearl danios basically being a mini barb. These are basically a mini cichlid.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like it had never occurred to me. No one has ever described them to me like that. But as you were saying it, I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's exactly what they're like.
Keep them in pairs. Feed them frozen daphnia. They do great. By the way, just about all of the fish that we talked about today so far. Check. Yes, frozen daphnia to me is that is
staple.
The ultimate nano fish food. Mm-hmm. Almost all of the fish we're going to talk about, if you did the combination of frozen daphnia and some kind of a flake food, you're covered. There's some other good foods out there. That's not exclusive, but
that's for another conversation.
That's for another conversation. Yeah.
To keep them in pairs is one of the big votes against the scarlet Badis to me, because you can not find females of that fish.
They're so hard to find.
Like, they only ship males. I don't know what that is. Like,
it's because
there's a high demand for females from what I've heard.
Yeah, it's the same with apistos, right? The males are the pretty ones.
Yeah, but like everybody asks me about the females, but other Badis don't seem to have that problem. There's like the black tiger. There's a whole bunch of really cool ones. Some of them are like really good color changers too, which is really fun for me to watch.
I'm going to say something controversial now. I would put a pair of Badis, not Davario, because they actually get a little bit bigger.
Davario would be danios.
They get a little bit bigger, but the true Badis and the tigers stay 3/4 of an inch or smaller. I'm going to say you could do a pair of those in a 1-gallon tank.
Fed and maintained well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see why not.
I'm thinking really hard about it, and I can't poke holes in that idea. It's really just a matter of do your maintenance, and
and plant it heavy, like bunch of Java moss or dwarf sage.
Layering plants.
Yeah.
Layering like Anubias, Boos.
Yeah,
stuff
they like
that
need
gives you that horizontal.
Snake through some plants.
Yep.
oh my god, that looks so cool.
That'd be
It
a
would
sweet
be
little tank.
really awesome.
Just a teeny little tank.
Yeah.
There's some teeny little hang in the back filters out there now, or even some. Well, the sponge filters would be a little bit too
take up
obtrusive,
so
but
much
you
space.
could do it.
Or like a nano canister on a tank like that would be like
There we
amazing
go.
but ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
That'd be
If you're doing a
beautiful.
1-gallon tank and doing it planted and trying to look at nice, you should go all in and just
Yeah.
be ridiculous with it, though.
You might as well.
You
know
can
what I
still
mean?
do
Yeah.
it for under $100, so you may as well.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that
There we
is
go.
definitely important. And that's another fish that we've kept alongside neo colonies before. I kind of like those tiny fish for like, you got a good colony going. They are not big enough to pick off the adults. They'll just pick off some babies from time to time. And then it's like amazing supplemental live food for them and part of your display.
And make them fat and happy.
Awesome.
There we go. What you got, Amy?
All right. Well, I'm going to go from like the amazing exotic to the completely standard because I think that we need to say it. And I don't know, maybe it's not a nanofish. It gets over 2 inches. But I got to talk about betta splendens.
Yeah, you do. Yep. I don't
Because
disagree.
the domestic bettas are the ideal easy fish to keep in a tank that's less than 5 gallons.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like the wild types more. I'm going to comment on, I don't think that calling them betta splendens is accurate,
No.
given that they're hybridized with
Yes.
so many things at
I'm
this point.
talking specifically about the domestic betta.
Yep.
How about that?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just losing my words because I'm like, there's really not a better, like if this is your first time doing like a 3-gallon tank,
Yeah. So
do a
Amy,
betta.
minimum tank size.
To me, it's 2.5. I could see going as low as 1. I probably would do 5, but anywhere in that size range, I understand your opinion about it. There are some people that say they need at least 10 gallons, and I think that's
I
ridiculous.
think that's what there's too.
But good, clean water, enough room to swim around.
And what's the big thing?
You need a heater.
Yes.
Heater.
I don't care if you have a filter or not. I don't care if you have a light or not. You need a heater.
Yes.
And probably a lid.
Probably. Some of the real long tail ones, you don't need a lid.
No, not so much.
Yep.
But yeah, I had a uncomfortable conversation with somebody the other day because they came to me and said, I don't know, my betta's just not doing that well. And I was like, do you have a heater? And they were like, well, no, but, and started going in. And I was just like, that's why.
Yeah.
Like, and
Done.
I felt bad because I was so dismissive about it, but it just is. You
It
need
is.
a heater.
You need a heater.
But there's no replacement for that fish in the hobby at this point.
No, I agree.
No.
And if you want an easy nano tank, there is absolutely no replacement.
Right.
One fish,
One fish.
and do your water changes, do light water changes every week or every other week. Have some plants in there. Doesn't need to be anything complicated.
Right.
And you will always have fun with that tank.
Yes. Make sure they can get to the surface.
Yeah. I do want to talk about tank size a little bit more. So I would consider 2.5 to be the minimum I would do. Yes, you can keep them in smaller. I don't disagree with that. It's just not fun.
No, it's more fun to give them a little more space.
Like you don't have room to, like with the Badis, they're small enough that you have room to actually kind of like aquascape it and do something. You don't have room to do that with a betta and a 1 gallon.
It's true.
It's just
true.
going to look crowded.
I've just seen some pretty happy bettas in some 1 gallon bowls.
I don't disagree with that.
Yep. And I think that maybe this is a... All right, it'll be a little controversial here, right? The fish bowl. Never the goldfish bowl. We all know that.
Boo.
But that I just need something small that I can put on my desk, and I only have room for my 1 gallon. I don't think you're doing something wrong by keeping a fish that way, by keeping a betta that way.
I don't think you're doing something wrong, but if you have room for a 1 gallon, you have room for a bigger tank. Like, there is no 1 gallon bowl that's smaller than a 2.5 gallon cube.
That's true.
You know, like
That's true.
like it just makes your life easier.
Yeah, that's true.
But I will throw out there, I have seen some amazingly well kept and loved bettas in 1 gallon
Oh,
tanks.
tr- and yeah, it's really more of a question of like decor and like how you figured it out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you can do it right.
Yeah.
It's easier to do it right in a bigger tank, but you can do it right in a smaller tank.
I will comment that the specific person I'm thinking of, I'm not going to name because I know this person would not want me to, but this person had spent time getting the betta to want to interact with her, so she circumvented the problem of boredom by not putting stuff in the tank, but putting stuff around the tank that the fish was interested in. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool idea.
Enrichment.
Yeah, that's a pretty
And
cool
I will
idea.
point out that Ben's betta is in a 3 gallon tank.
5 actually.
5 gallon tank.
Yeah, and it's my wife's betta, by the way. Indigo is definitely
I'm sorry.
my wife's betta.
Robin's betta.
It is Robin's betta. Yes. Any of the quote unquote betta police listening to me talk about a 1 gallon tank being sufficient for a betta, Google collecting wild bettas in Thailand. And you can watch a video of some people collecting wild bettas out of the where the leaves on a dwarf palm tree come together. It forms a little pocket of water that's sometimes less than a gallon of water. And you can see them going around and collecting wild bettas out of those little pockets of water.
Keeping in mind that
in
pocket of
the water.
water is probably getting 100% water change every day.
Granted.
Yeah.
Granted. It's not...
It's about clean water
It's
is
about
more
clean
than
water
it is about
than it
space.
is
Yeah.
Yep. So, betta police out there, watch the video, and then we can have an adult conversation about it. But if you're just going to slam it, then I don't even talk to you.
Yeah. It's boring to just say like 10 gallons minimum.
Bettas are definitely a fish that like almost every other fish on this list. I feel like that if you tried to argue smaller tank, I'm like, what's wrong with you? You're dumb.
Yeah.
But this is a very nuanced fish.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
A domestic longfin betta can barely swim.
Right.
Like a half moon. I mean, if you're going to argue that 1 gallon is cruel, then you should argue that those fins are cruel
I agree.
because
Completely.
they can swim a little bit.
Yep. And you can have that same argument with some of the longfin guppies. Some of those males have a hard time keeping their body horizontal because their tail's so heavy. Towards the bottom.
Anyway, Charles, what do you got for us next?
I knew someone would say this fish at some point. So my follow-up is, I think basically any situation you could keep a betta, you could keep a pair of Nothobranchus instead.
That's that one off the list.
There we go.
Yep.
I specifically wrote down Nothobranchus guntheri.
Excellent choice.
My personal favorite has shifted. In the past, I've been sticking to Egger's Eye.
Mm-hmm.
The pair that I worked with here made me say, I don't usually like the color yellow, but the yellow on that fish is good enough to make me like yellow on that fish.
When Nothobranchus does yellow, they do yellow right.
It's so
The
good.
yellow on the yellow Cortausi.
Yeah.
Oh, gorgeous fish. Cortausi is one of the easiest of the Nothobranchus species.
You really can't go wrong with most species in this
Right.
genus.
Yeah.
The when they say easiest or most challenging with Nothobranchus species, they're really talking about incubation period.
Yeah. You have to be more patient.
Right.
Yeah, like you know how you can get like a personalized product and it's just like it's either pink or orange or green or blue. It's like Nothobranchus to me. Like you just get it's the one that you like. Like they're
Yeah.
all just different paint jobs of the same beautiful fish.
Oranges, yellows, blues,
Pink.
pinks, reds, really good reds, scarlet red.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, the Roachii.
And like the best
Ricovii?
the best examples of each of those colors are represented in this one genus.
Yep. I would dare say the most colorful freshwater fish on the planet. Wild Nothobranchus.
Yeah.
I can't argue against that.
Cardinal tetra, I think, is the only fish you could come up with
Yeah, and
that rivals it.
that's one. This is an entire
This
genus
entire
of
genus.
fish.
Yep.
Like cardinal and neon tetras. Yeah, it's that one paint job.
Yeah.
If cardinal and neon tetras also came in yellow and green and pink and orange,
Yep.
then maybe they could contend.
Yep. I agree. A single male Nothobranchus in a 2.5 gallon tank, just as good as a domestic betta.
Yeah.
And then 2.5s and swap the female back and
Yes.
forth.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then 4 2.5s and have 2 species, and then 6 2.5s and have 3 species, and then you have a fish closet and you have all of them, and then you're very happy.
That's exactly. Kind of tempting me right now. Amy.
I spawned mine by keeping a pair in a 2.5 gallon,
Yep.
and then I had a breeder box to pull the female out.
Right.
I think that degree of separation so that she's not harassed.
I did them in 5.5 gallons, and I kept them as pairs. The females lasted 9 months to a year. I had a male that was almost 5 years old. Okay, so you got to talk about the life cycle of Nothobranchus because so many
To
people
know
go,
why that's
What
okay."
is this fish? What the heck is the deal with this?
Listen to our killifish episode. Then come back here.
Yeah, let me explain. No, it would take too long. Let me sum up. Okay, you sum up.
They are an annual fish. So they come from a habitat where they have seasonal pools. They spawn in the dirt. Yes, in the dirt, not on the dirt, in the dirt.
In the dirt.
And the ponds dry up. They incubate. And then when the rainy season starts again, those eggs hatch. And that's when the next generation starts.
The ponds dry up and the fish dry up.
Yes, the
It's
adults
insane.
die. The adults don't. Yeah, that's it. That's as long as they live. So most Nothobranchus species of killifish live for 6 months.
Yeah, in the wild.
Complete their entire life cycle, get to 1.5 inches, sometimes 2 inches, in 6 months. They start breeding at 3 months. If the pond or the aquarium doesn't dry up, like I said, I had a Nothobranchus racovii male he looked like this big bulbous mass. He was just like, he wasn't deformed, but he did not look recognizable
It was
as
like
a Nothobranchus.
Old fish, crooked spine, and
No,
like
he was
kind
not
of
crooked at all.
No,
Bulbous.
Ooh.
Like rounder. Not like bumps coming out
Yeah.
of him, but there was no torpedo shape left. A very deeper bodied Nothobranchus. Almost like overweight. If you could imagine what a Nothobranchus would look like if it was overweight.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
then 2.5 inches long almost.
weird.
Absolutely gorgeous in
Yeah.
color. He killed his female at, like I said, after about it might have been a year. But then he lasted for another 3 or 4.
Yeah, they're
Gorgeous.
just. I want to harp on that. Like, there's the mop spawning killies and the dirt spawning killies, and the dirt ones just really do it for me because walking by once in a while and just seeing one dive into the dirt,
So cool.
it's so funny. I love it.
Have you walked up on them when they just have their head poking out of the dirt and they just like are looking
Yeah.
around with their head like,
Exhausted. Someone get that fish a cigarette.
My God, they're so. It's such a cool lifestyle.
yes.
Yeah,
And
they're
just-
like endearing and fascinating and stunningly beautiful.
Yep. What do they eat?
Dude,
Anything.
anything they can fit in their mouth.
Everything.
How about water quality?
They don't care.
Doesn't matter.
Try not to have ammonia.
Yeah. Nothobranchus is alternate lung. That's what the genus name means. Or other lung, Nothos other or something like that.
Something like that.
Something along those lines, right? So they live in pools that dry up, super low oxygen. And the longer they can survive in that low oxygen environment, the more successful they are as a species. So they can take some really crappy water quality. There's rumors of them being found and completing their life cycle in elephant footprints.
You know, that doesn't surprise me.
It's not an exaggeration. I mean, that's something that they can genuinely do.
And how many gallons? We got to measure 1 inch per gallon in an elephant footprint is.
Cross the T minus 7 divided by 12. Yeah, it's not a lot of water.
No, it's not.
No.
And they're just such a cool, like, project. I think for in many different aspects, you could be at any level of the hobby. You want to start like breeding for the first time, Nothobranchus.
Nothobranchus.
You want to win Breeder of the Award in your local club? Nothobranchus.
Nothobranchus.
Just start.
You want an amazing 1 or 2 year experiment to do with your kids?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I wish I would see people do that. Like, you let the fish do it, you dry the eggs, and you add water, and you get to see babies.
Instant fish, just add water.
Right?
Right.
Like, what a fun summer project.
It's perfect. It needed to be mentioned. It was on the if on the way my list is here, it was number 3
It was,
on my fish that needed to be discussed.
yeah.
See how good we're doing it, ripping through these.
We're getting pretty through them.
This is
Oh,
a
yeah.
fun, nerdy fact about this fish
Ooh.
genus. So you want to know how they hit my radar?
Did I do that one too?
No.
No? Okay, how'd they hit your radar?
Because they are a model organism for evolutionary biology.
Oh,
because
sure.
they have true non-overlapping generations.
Oh, right.
That makes doing math on them really easy.
Right.
Because one of the assumptions in a lot of mathematical models for evolutionary biology is you got to have non-overlapping generations. Otherwise, the math gets insane.
Right. I never even thought about that one, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The day I learned that was the day that I walked into your office and said, so what do you know about killie?
And from there, it's history.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a fan. when it
One
comes to
breeder
killies.
lab later,
Right.
Charles is finally starting to achieve that satisfaction.
Well, speaking of killifish, no talk about nanofish could be complete. At least no talk that I'm involved in. I guess if we're talking about favorite fish, underrated fish, best fish for a planet aquarium, best beginner killifish,
All around best in show.
all around best fish, my all-time favorite fish, the clown killie, Epiplatus annulatus. Fun fact about them, they started out as Epiplatus annulatus. Then the splitters got involved and they split the genus, and it was a monotypic genus, Pseudo-Epiplatus annulatus. And then the lumpers got back together and said, no, you were actually wrong about that. They are truly in the genus Epiplatus. So they are back in with the rest of their kin in Epiplatus.
They're the hot cousin.
Yeah, that's probably right.
The other Epiplatus are very cute.
Yes, but they aren't clown
They don't
killie cute.
get nearly there.
Very few fish do.
This is not the type of killie I like to keep.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it doesn't meld with the way I like to keep killies. I think this is the killie that best suits the most people
I could see that.
because it's peaceful. You can
Mm-hmm.
keep it in groups. You
Yep.
could keep it in a community tank. You
Yep.
could keep it in a nano tank. You
Yep.
could keep it in it checks off so many boxes.
Right. A 2.5 gallon tank with a pair mop spawning or a trio mop spawning. Beautiful.
Perfect.
The males are not too mean to the females, so there's they can live that way for a long time. I did mine with no filters. It was a room that was kept at about 72 degrees. They don't need to be any warmer than that. The Nothobranchus don't need to be warmer than that either.
I'm not
They
shaking my head.
Don't want to get colder than that. So in an average house, you do need a small heater with nothos or with clowns.
Yeah.
At that point, a filter just makes things easier for you. The fish don't really care.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
But I still want to harp on this fish just a little bit more on the
Oh, I'm not done.
I like nothos more. Clown killies are far more accessible,
Mm-hmm.
far easier to work with. And I say that as I think nothos are about as easy as it gets, and I still think clown killies are way easier.
Less drama.
I think that if somebody would draw a cartoon drawing of a killifish, you'd come up with that design.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Or the clown killie would look cooler than your
I
design.
know, right? Right?
It does look like a kid colored it in because it's got weird patches of colors here and there. It's got a little flame
Let's
tail.
put a flame
Yeah.
tail on it and stripes.
I sort of like the rocket killie name a little
Yeah.
better.
Rocket Panchax was the other name. One of the older names for this fish.
And they do look like a rocket.
They do. A Bugs Bunny era, Bugs
Yeah,
Bunny
like
cartoon rocket.
Acme brand.
Acme brand rocket. Exactly. Black and white stripes with a flame tail.
So cool.
Random spotches of blue and pink on it too.
Thank you, evolution.
They're so cool.
I don't know how you did that, but
I
it's
know.
amazing.
Me and my buddies, we have this concept where we'll show an organism to one another, and we're like, "How is this a viable answer to the question of evolution?" Clown killie was brought up once in that chat.
Because
sure.
it's cute.
Yeah. Again, another one that does great on Daphnia and crushed flake. I bred and raised the babies on Daphnia and crushed flake when I was doing this fish.
I wouldn't say it just does great. It excels and thrives.
Yeah. They're
It's
so
so
cool.
good.
Yeah, there are some of the setups that we've talked about that are like a good enough, but a clown killie thrives in pretty much any environment that it's not being eaten in.
Yeah. I think that's pretty accurate. I wouldn't keep them with Betta splendens.
Yeah.
No.
But that's just because they have a long tail.
Right.
I don't
They're
think
too pretty.
I don't think any long-tailed fish belongs in a tank with a betta splendens.
I think that's probably a good way to say it.
Yeah, and really, like, killies and bettas tend to have a contentious relationship anyway.
But, for example, I know this isn't a nano tank, but I want to exemplify how versatile this fish is. We have a 60-gallon cube with a group of clown killies. Sorry, I blanked. Neoheterandria shrimp,
Corydoras similis.
Corydoras similis, and autocats. Everyone's just fine.
And betta brownorum.
And betta brownorum.
It's such a fantastic group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All organisms that could fit in the sizes of tanks we've talked about here, but in a 60-gallon tank, those nano fish shine when you've got them in sufficient numbers.
Yep.
It makes that tank look bigger.
It's such a cool group.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that fish a lot, but it cannot be overstated.
I didn't want to steal your thunder, but I had to be like, dude, this fish fits in so many boxes.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Fantastic.
All right, Amy, what you got?
So I'm assuming that you guys are ready to talk about nano wild bettas at some point, because I've just been keep pushing it down my list, and if that's what you're going to talk about,
That's what I keep doing too. I just
been waiting for Charles.
I was saving the best for last.
all right, then I'm going to skip that,
Okay.
and I'm going to talk about Nano African barbs.
Okay.
Like
So-
the J barb?
The J barb, which actually I did not even consider. I considered the African fire barb and the African butterfly barb.
Nice.
Both stay around an inch. Gorgeous. The striping on the fire barb, the color on the fire barb is unbeatable. The butterfly barb gets that gorgeous yellow and pink with those spots. They're both beautiful.
Beautiful.
Both could be kept in a 5, but would be better done in a 10. Fall into a lot of the other categories of schooling fish that we've kept here, but nobody does them.
I know.
I am. So on our most recent order, we got in a group of butterfly barbs. I am sorely tempted to scrap the hexazona barbs and do the butterfly barbs, only because no one seems to know about them, and I really I don't have problems convincing people to take home hexazona barbs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they are unbelievably gorgeous
They're
and so tiny.
Mm-hmm. Didn't we breed hexazonas already?
We have not.
Oh, we have. Okay.
But that's
We did
because
panda.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. It's
Okay.
because I've been having problems with the black water.
That's right. Okay.
I don't want to talk about it.
But I think either you could keep in a group of 6. They're expensive, so you probably don't want to do more than that.
Right.
But if you did, it would be so cool.
Yes.
I think the ideal setup for a group of butterfly barbs, and I don't mean this is the minimum. I think the best setup is a 10-gallon for
Yeah.
a group of 6 to 8.
I agree.
I think that'd be perfect.
I don't think going bigger benefits you or them.
Bulbitis, Anubias.
All of the easy plants from Africa.
Right. Yep.
Ugh.
Maybe like a little, I don't know, a Potageton or a lily or something like that. I kind of like those in little tanks sometimes for scale.
Do you? Mm-hmm. I think they overwhelm a little tank a little. I guess it depends on the Aponogeton.
Yeah, if you can fill it in with that as the big backdrop and
Oh, that would be
little
cool.
plants underneath. I love that umbrella look, and it
That would be
darkens
cool.
the tank a little bit.
Right.
That would really make those fish pop too.
Yeah. And they don't need that much to pop. They're already really, really cool.
They're gorgeous. Yeah.
But
Yep.
nobody wants to talk about African fish.
Nothos are African.
Yeah.
It's true. That's true.
But I mean, they're cool African fish.
Preview for upcoming podcasts.
Yeah. But the tiny, tiny stripes on a fire barb, I think, are it's a really delicate detail that you often lose on little fish. A
Yeah.
lot of them, you don't, they're so small that there's not a lot of patterning to them. And pattern is one of the things that really draws me to a fish. But both of those species, and actually the J barb too, have a really nice, kind of color and pattern to them that's a little more subtle.
J barb just gets a little redder.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Bear with me here.
Okay.
You know when you look like a small model of something and you're looking at it and you're like, how did they get so much detail on this?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about an African firebarb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes like, how?
Yep.
Yeah. So give them a try. More
I
people
think
need to
that's
be
a good
asking
one.
us about those because I would like to get more of them in.
Sounds like we need a bigger nanofish area.
Okay.
I'm not going to say no.
I know, right?
More tanks.
All right, Charles, bring on the bettas.
All right. So I put down Betta Persephone dash Betta Cocina complex.
Mm-hmm. I just put down Cocina complex.
I
So
put down Cocina specifically.
The Persephone is definitely my favorite of this complex. They were the first wild betta I ever got my hands on. This is the fish that got me back in the hobby.
Nice.
So this is the fish that when I was told that some guy from a store named Watercolors had brought them to the swap. So this is really the fish that, like, for me, the renaissance of getting back into the hobby and stuff. Like, it's because of this fish. So I feel like I know a lot to this specific species and Ben.
Nice.
I would not be here if that fish had not been specifically then there because of you.
Nice. Yeah, you're right. It's a good thing you stole some for the breeder lab.
Finally, those Persephones are looking
I
amazing.
know.
Yep. All right, so talk about their look and talk about their care.
They look like a short-finned, long, skinny, I shouldn't say skinny, gracile betta. Like, if you think of a placat, make it a little bit, like, more petite.
More torpedo shape.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're talking about the placats we have here, maybe quite a bit more skinny.
But, yeah. But they do definitely look like a betta. They're just small. And what's really cool about them is this group of bettas, they're a true blackwater fish. And so they really shine to display them well, I don't think you need soft water. I think you just need to darken your water a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Because their color is definitely designed to shine when they have to force it a little
And they
bit.
do.
They do.
Ugh.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I love spotlet tanks for blackwater organisms because they know when they want to show off and when they don't, and they know exactly how to use light to really push their color. And they can sort of only do that if they have a gradient of light to work with.
Here's the shameless plug for Kessel lighting.
Yeah.
I regret nothing. Yeah, I think doing a pair of these in like a 3-gallon tank does them justice.
Yep.
They max out at like an inch. If you get a really big male, 1.25 inches.
Yeah.
And they're blue and purple.
Yeah.
The Persephones are blue and purple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so is the Miniopina. You could argue Hendra's in the Cocina complex.
That's a deep blue.
That's a deep blue.
Yeah.
The Bronarums are the ones that I like the best, which is that rich burgundy color with the blue square.
I love the square.
I know.
Why
It's
does
a
nature
square.
make a square?
Yeah.
This group is referred to as the red wine bettas.
Yes.
Red wine is the color of Coxina.
Yeah.
Or
Which-
Bronarum. rather.
Yeah.
But Coxina is like wine-related name, right?
I don't know.
I think
Is it?
etymologically,
Nice.
I think it means something to do with wine.
Okay.
But
Okay.
while she's looking that up, I think if you're excluding Hendra, Miniopina, and Persephone, if you really like the color red, look at the Cocina complex and find your favorite shade.
Right?
Yeah, I think that kind of sums it up.
They are a bubble nester, and I say that because I know a lot of people are going to be like, aren't all bettas? No, actually, bubble nesters are the weirdos of the bettas.
Yeah, it's like less than a third of the species that are bubble nesters.
I think the current count is around 80. I think officially there's 76 species,
Nice.
and there's easily another 25 waiting to be described. And I think 22 of them are bubble nesters.
So less than a quarter, or no, about a quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's perfect.
These are quote unquote a submerged bubble nester. So unlike a Betta splendens, they don't like going at the true surface. So to get them to build a nest, you need something, even if it's just a leaf floating on the water, they're like, good enough.
Yeah.
But they don't want it truly exposed to the air. The solution a lot of Cocina complex betta breeders use is they use film canisters.
Yeah.
Because it's the right size. And if you're thinking film canister, a pair of those comfortably spends their day in a film canister with a nest that the male is tending.
Right.
Just process that for a second.
That's the amount of space they need. That's it.
And oh my God, I can't sing the praises of these enough. This is a really stupid detail maybe, but one of my favorite things about their coloration is if you look at their operculum, they've got those bars.
Ooh, yeah.
And I don't know why, but it just really draws me to their face. And they have a really bubble nester betta face, and just having it highlighted with those bars.
The lips.
Yes. Yeah. Just really does it for
Especially
me.
if it has the green spot, the green square, and it's like green square, little bit of green striping next to the gills, and then like the little bubble nester face.
It's a really cool paint job.
So cute.
And so this group is fun to talk about for me because we mentioned them in the 60-gallon cube. We have a group of 8 brown orem in there. And
There's 8 of them in there?
There's 8 of them.
I have seen one.
The only way I proved it to these guys that they're in there is that when we tore down the tank and redid it,
Yeah.
we had to net them all out. So they live in the Dragonstone, and I'm fully convinced the males are building. I don't think they're spawning. I think oh my goodness. The males are building nests inside the holes in the Dragonstone.
It sounds like a terrible advertisement for a fish to say, we never saw them and we didn't think they were in the tank, but like, it's just more endearing at that point.
And here's why I brought that up. They get lost in a big tank.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
Yeah.
you're like 8 of them in there.
Yeah.
That's why I think this is why I put it as number 1 as my nano fish.
Right.
Because we have a perfect example of they display best in a small tank, and then when you put them in a big tank, you don't see them.
True.
I think it's fantastic.
I love those fish.
There are a couple of other betta species that need mention. The Chenoides and albumarginatus.
Yeah.
Those could be counted as nano bettas.
And for a mouth brooder, it's the nano mouth
It's
brooder.
the nano mouth brooder.
Yeah.
Yep,
I
absolutely.
think a 5-gallon for a pair does justice.
I think it would be perfect.
That's just fine. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's excellent. Wild type bettas had to be mentioned.
Yeah,
Had to be
it's-
mentioned in any conversation, huh?
Interesting, because I think Chenoides and Alba marginata are a little flashier color-wise,
Yeah.
but I think I like the personalities of the Cochinas better.
They are fearless.
I mean, it's a tough choice, and you don't need to choose, but
the Cocina complex forever endeared them to me when I started keeping them. And every time I was working in the tank, specifically my female would follow my hand around and be like, "What are you doing? What you working on?" And watching a 3/4 of an inch fish
Yeah.
be completely
Oh, yeah.
fearless in that situation was insane to me. I had never experienced that before.
That's very cool.
well, my list is pretty spent up. What else do you still have to talk about, Penn?
You know, so there are other fish on the list that, really, guppies and endlers.
Yeah, some honorable mentions.
Yeah, honorable mentions. I do have one more.
Micro-cichlids
Micro-cichlids picta is a favorite. I
and
love those guys.
parrot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ottos.
Yeah.
Talk about a fantastic nano fish and a great. You need a cleanup crew for your tank.
Yeah.
The Ottos is that's some Ottos and some Amano shrimp and
The most recent auto I sold was because someone asked me, I really like the look of plecos, but I have a 10-gallon. And I said, oh, I've got the fish for you.
So the only reason I didn't put those is because I felt like they need to be in a bigger group and that requires a bigger tank. But I think there's a replacement for it in the 10-gallon range.
Oh, those little loaches, huh?
The little hillstream loaches, the aromizons and gastromizons that get less than 2 inches long.
Yeah.
They're going to serve a
Yeah.
similar purpose, and they're not going to need the group sizes. And they're really, really cute.
The only reason I thought about that, but I had said 10 gallons was my,
Yeah.
that counted.
And you can do it in
and
10.
4 or 5 autos
sure.
in a 10-gallon tank.
I honestly think
I
a
have no
trio
problem
of
with
them
that.
is fine.
It is
Yeah,
fine.
and then you could even go down to 5.5.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think they're better in the 6+ range,
Mm-hmm. I agree.
but
I
I
don't
don't think they're
disagree.
bad in the 3 range.
Yep. Yep.
And well acclimated autos are not going to be stressed at a group of 3. It's really that really crucial time between when you get them and when they de-stress so that they need their friends around.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been watching the 2 that I have together in, granted it's a 20 long, but there's
Yeah.
the only fish in there are 2 autos, and they're doing great.
They're so fat
They're
and they're
happy
cruising
little-
around. They
Yep.
look happy. They're not stressed.
Yeah.
It's just that really crucial post-shipping time
Right.
where you just need a group of autos.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're cute in a group at any time, but
Yep.
Yep.
for acclimation, they need it.
That's probably the, I'm going to mention like what was going to be my honorable mentions and what was going to be my 5th fish. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say autos are my 5th fish.
It's a good choice.
That's the one. Glass gobies, bumblebee gobies,
Yeah.
endlers, white clouds, Vietnamese white clouds, guppies. Those all are worthy of mention.
I'm going to mention Bettas smeridina.
Yep,
Only,
absolutely.
and I'm specifically not saying Bettas splendens complex only because that's specifically my favorite
Mm-hmm.
species, but like a pair of those in a 5.
Yeah. The whole Bettas splendens complex, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stiphodons and other small
Yeah.
gobies other
I
than
was
the glass
shocked you didn't bring
gobies.
those up.
They're a good little nano algae eater, but yeah, they weren't on my top 5 list. I think they're super cute and I think they're definitely doable in tanks that are 5 gallons, but I didn't feel the need to bring them up again. I talked about them a lot in the underrated fish, and I think they belong a little bit more solidly in that category.
I think you're right. There's one other fish that really has to be mentioned, though. Absolutely adorable little fish that is a nano of the group of which they are a part gets some monsters.
Oh, I didn't even think about them.
Right. A pair. Like, I know the guy who was published the first article on spawning them, and he spawned them in a 5.5 gallon aquarium.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So 5.5 gallons is plenty for a pair of these fish. They're going to get a little feisty with other fish in 5.5 gallons. You can kind of get away with them in bigger tanks with other fish, as long as the other fish can get away. But in a small tank,
If they're fast, tough, and bigger than them, maybe you can get away with some other fish.
yes. But a pair of pea puffers in a 5.5 gallon tank, on the cuteness scale,
Yes.
how can you beat them?
Yes.
Right?
And-
Maybe coolness scale or beautiful scale or amazing scale or personality scale too. Those beady little eyes staring at you.
Yeah, it's sort of like you could, in the same place you could put a 3-inch betta that's not going to get along with anything, you could put a 1/2-inch pea puffer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
But it would still be worth it.
Yep.
I stand by their murder beans, and I mean that with affection.
The amount of, I had a snail problem, which for one, I'm already like, hang on.
Yeah.
And I added a pea puffer to my tank, and now I'm starting to lose neon tetras. What's going on? You added a pea puffer to your tank. Just accept the snails.
I've seen pea puffers work in neon tetra tanks.
If the neon tetras have plenty of time to get away and don't slack.
Well planted.
Yes, well planted. Well planted, well stocked with snails, well fed pea puffers. It's doable.
Yeah. But really, the way that pea puffers shine is in a little 5.5 gallon tank.
The way that pea puffers shine is, to me, we had that couple who had a 60 cube and got 30 of them.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Like,
right.
that's the dream.
Yeah.
1 or 2 in a 5, a couple of them or a handful of them in a 10. I just feel like you don't need other fish to distract you from them. They're cool enough on their own.
That's true. That's true.
And snail management is a pointless task to begin with.
Well, how do you manage snails?
I would say it's
Feed less.
counterproductive.
Yeah, exactly. Feed less.
Feed less. Don't feed so much, and feed the right amount of food.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Anything
how you
else we
control
missed?
Yeah. Any other alternates, guys?
I got all mine.
I mean, I could start listing off wild bettas, but I'm not going to,
Yeah.
Pretty much any of them can go in a nano tank.
unless you get into the big boys.
We probably should have talked a little bit about Gardner Achilles too. Or
Oh,
really,
yeah. The
That's
mob
probably the
spawners
Achilles.
versus the...
Yeah.
I guess Gardner Achilles I would class as the best beginner killie.
Yeah.
Just because they're really well documented. They're a little less versatile than the clown killies, but that part of that is that they're bigger, so they come with that package. They're a mop spawning killie, so factor that into your calculations when you're thinking about how to keep them or
Right.
spawn them.
Right.
I don't really have a lot to say about them
Yeah.
though, because they're really not hard to work with.
When I did them in a 5.5 gallon tank with Nias grass, and babies just showed up. I did not. I've kept them with picking eggs, and I way more productive with picking eggs, but a whole bunch of Nias grass and babies just show up, and all I did was throw
I'm
food
being
in.
very expressive non-verbally today. I threw my hands up when he said that because I was like, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the mob spawning killies.
Yep.
Fundial panchax, Aphiosemion.
Yep.
I think the Amphiosemions deserve way more attention than they get, by the way, at
Yeah.
least from the average hobbyist, just because there's so much variety there. And I'm not a mop spawner person, so maybe I'm not the type of person to bring them up, but I think they deserve a lot. Because a lot of people are more attracted to the mop spawners than they are the dirt spawners, because there is definitely an extra step there that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And if you want to graduate from clown killies and Gardner Achilles, I think jumping into the Amphicemian genus is the way to do it.
I think that's the good next step. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yep.
I think that's all I have.
Well, there we have it. You know, the problem with these talks, I like 5 different or 10 different tanks now that I think we should set up downstairs as
All
displays.
right, fine.
Let's get on it.
And how about you guys at home set up some tanks and send us some pictures of them?
Yes. And what are your favorite nano fish? What did we miss? What are some of those things that you went, oh yeah, I never thought of that? Or what are those things, hey, why didn't you guys mention this fish? Because they'd be perfect in a nano tank.
Yeah, you can always email us at podcast@watercolorsaquariumgallery.com, but we'll definitely post this on our Facebook page. Post a comment underneath. We'll definitely ask you the question, what's your favorite nano fish or something like that. And you can also leave a comment on our website under this page or a review or comment on iTunes. So we're pretty easy to reach.
We'll probably do some little summaries on this on our YouTube channel, so subscribe to that. Otherwise, thank you so much for sitting through this conversation for the last, I don't know, what are we at, like an hour and a half, something like that?
Yeah, but we had fun, so that's what's important.
You guys can deal with it.
I mean that sincerely, though. Thank you so much for listening, and let's have lots of fun and keep those hands wet.